and one development manager, Evantra, connected to 3 failed tower projects across the corridor. Centerra Group, the company behind Langford Gateway, is run by CEO Bob Fraser out of Vancouver. Their track record extends beyond Langford. 2 arrest warrants were issued for Fraser in connection with Centerra's Promontory development in Kelowna, a 120-unit townhouse project, after he failed to appear in court for payment hearings on default judgments from unpaid contractors. Times Colonist, August 2024, the Investigative Journalism Foundation reported that Centerra, its predecessor Eva's Funds, and their associated companies have faced at least a dozen lawsuits from contractors citing payment issues. Times Colonist, August 2024. Meanwhile, Centerra's website was actively marketing Langford Gateway as a limited partnership investment opportunity to private investors, essentially using the Langford-approved project as a fundraising vehicle while the company was defaulting on its mortgage and facing legal action in Kelowna. Centerra Group website, West Shore News. DB Services, the builder of Danbrook 1, was a prolific Langford developer, 12 completed projects in the downtown core, including 6 residential buildings on Hockley Avenue and the 12-story Tallwood 1. Margaret McKay served as director of both DB Services and Loco Investments, the seller of Danbrook 1. The company filed for bankruptcy in August 2023. Ashcroft Cache Creek Journal, August 2023. How did we get here? The Stu Young System. Understanding these failures requires understanding the system that approved them. Stu Young served as Langford's only mayor from incorporation in 1993 until his defeat in October 2022, nearly 30 years. He was acclaimed, ran unopposed, in 4 of his 8 terms. In his last contested election in 2018, he spent $6.02 on his campaign, and won 83% of the vote. Langford had the lowest voter turnout of any municipality on Vancouver Island. Capital Daily, April 2021. Young ran the city like a personal fiefdom, and said so openly. He told Douglas Magazine, "I run the city like a business." He had a standing promise that if any development application was taking more than 3 to 6 months, developers could bring it directly to his desk. Langford Council was known to zip through 200-page agendas in 15 minutes, voting unanimously on each item. Douglas Magazine, August 2018, Times Colonist, April 2015. Young was categorically unwilling to slow development. In August 2021, the same period when Gateway, Central/The Scene, and Dunford Crossing were all being pushed through, Council had 8 rezoning applications in front of it at various stages in a single meeting. Dozens of residents wrote in with concerns about traffic and construction impacts. Young brushed off critics, sometimes speculating they were jealous they didn't get a big offer from a developer. Greater Victoria News, August 2021. When residents formed Langford Voters for Change to push back on the pace, Young dismissed them. When the same corridor's developments were being approved in rapid succession, there was no strategic plan, no transportation plan, no parks management plan. Check News, November 2021, October 2022. The development approvals that created the current crisis, The Scene, January 2022, Dunford Crossing, early 2022, and the continued advancement of Langford Gateway, all happened in the final year of Young's tenure, when his council was pushing through the largest and most aggressive rezonings in the city's history, in a corridor with known geotechnical challenges, including a problematic water table. Times Colonist, February 2025. After losing the 2022 election, Young told the Times Colonist he now does consulting with various developers and other businesses. He has publicly considered running again in 2026. Times Colonist, November 2023. What the current council is doing differently. The Goodmanson Council inherited a mess. And I want to be clear, this isn't a puff piece for anyone. But the contrast in approach is worth documenting, because it matters for what Langford looks like going forward. Proactive independent review. The city didn't wait for a collapse at the scene. They retained WSP Canada to do an independent geotechnical peer review, and acted on the findings immediately. Direct communication with residents. The mayor and staff personally delivered hazard notifications to all 17 affected property owners at the scene. A public town hall is scheduled for February 28. That's transparency. Enforcement with teeth. Remedial action orders with hard deadlines. 25 bylaw fines at Langford Gateway. Nuisance and hazard declarations at Gateway, Dunford Crossing, and other stalled sites across the city. The nuisance order at the scene's Pete Road site was one of 5 issued by Langford last year alone. Cleanup at the developer's expense with costs attached as property tax arrears. These aren't warnings, they're actions. Victoria News, February 2026. Naming names publicly. Mayor Goodmanson called out Jagpal Development directly at the press conference. Previous administrations tended to shield developers from public scrutiny. Policy guardrails for future development. Council just approved a new two-tower development on Peat/Sunderland from a completely different ownership group. But this time, they've required maintenance covenants for existing homes until construction begins, developer-funded street improvements, and the developer has acknowledged the water table challenges up front. The city is also bringing forward a construction impact management strategy and a new good neighbor policy to guide all future development. Times Colonist, February 2026, Suk News Mirror, October 2025. Councillor Yakucha put it plainly when the new Peat/Sunderland proposal came forward. In many ways, I see this as almost our last chance to get this right for a tower. If this falls through because we don't have our institutional sophistication to ensure our residents and taxpayers are protected, it may be decades before the people of Langford will consider a tower again. Times Colonist, February 2026. That's a council that understands the stakes, the pattern, and why it matters. Step back and look at the map. The scene, Langford Gateway, Danbrook 1, and Dunford Crossing are all within Langford's downtown core. This area has known geotechnical challenges, including a problematic water table that makes deep excavation inherently risky and demands rigorous engineering oversight. What we're seeing is the accumulated consequence of a previous era where development was approved aggressively, 8 rezonings in a single meeting, 200-page agendas in 15 minutes, conditional permits where conditions were never verified, but oversight and enforcement didn't keep pace. Developers from outside the community were granted rezoning for massive towers, some with documented histories of contractor disputes, arrest warrants, and project failures in other jurisdictions. They excavated sites and then either stalled, defaulted, or built structures with serious deficiencies. The residents left holding the bag are the neighbors, people dealing with collapsing retaining walls, asbestos-laden rubble, emergency vehicle restrictions, plummeting property values, and years of uncertainty. One developer, Evantra, was the common management thread across 3 of these failed projects. Another, Jagpal, has 2 stalled sites simultaneously. A third, Centera, was raising private investment money while defaulting on mortgages and ducking court appearances in another city. These weren't unforeseeable failures. They were foreseeable consequences of a system that prioritized speed over scrutiny and treated developer concerns as more important than community protection. The current council is cleaning up that legacy. It's not glamorous work, but it's necessary, and so far, they're doing it with the seriousness it demands. What residents should know. The scene, 2748 Peat. If you live adjacent to this site, WSP has recommended no heavy vehicle access on the straighter road until the shoring is remediated. The developer has until February 25 to act. Town Hall is February 28, location TBA. Langford Gateway, Arncote Peat Sunderland. The land is under court-ordered sale. City cleanup of the Arncote site is proceeding regardless of ownership status. Dunford Crossing, Dunford/Jacqueline nuisance order issued October 2025, 60-day remediation deadline. City intervention expected early 2026. Danbrook 1/Ridgeview Place, civil litigation is ongoing in BC Supreme Court. The building has been vacant since April 2023. If you're affected by any of these situations, attend the town hall on the 28th. Council has shown they're listening, but they need to hear from you directly. Amendment. Credit where it's due. None of what follows should erase what Stu Young built. When Langford was incorporated in 1992, it was the dogpatch of the capital region, Young's own words. No tax base, no jobs, young people leaving. Over 30 years, he turned it into one of the fastest growing cities in Canada. He brought in Costco, Home Depot, and Bear Mountain. He built a commercial tax base that kept residential taxes low. He got recreation centers, playing fields, and schools built when other municipalities were still holding committee meetings about committee meetings. That transformation was real, and it happened because someone was willing to cut through red tape and make fast decisions when fast decisions were what the city needed. But there's a difference between fast-tracking a big box store on vacant land and fast-tracking a 24-story tower on a problematic water table with developers who have arrest warrants in other jurisdictions. The scale of consequence changed. The governance approach didn't. And the question Langford faces now isn't whether growth was good, it was. The question is whether the institutions that approve and oversee that growth matured at the same pace as the skyline. The evidence in the Peat/Sunderland corridor suggests they didn't.